it sort of like sorts itself out.
Okay.
Right, just started the recording. Right, hi guys, Lee Ashby here, BSMA Motocross Memories. I'm here with the main man, 11 times British champion, and he is a great of British MX, Rob Herring. How you doing, Rob?
Hey Lee, I'm very good, thank you. Hope you are too.
Yeah, absolute privilege to speak to you, mate. Definitely one of my favourites of all time, so it's amazing for myself, and to be able to bring it to everyone else is really cool as well.
Cheers, thanks so much.
Right, let's get on with these questions then, all ready for them. So I've got a question from Pat Stott. He said, your thoughts on what you feel is the best era of motocross, and when did too many rules and image and marketing become too much for too professional as well? He's got a bit of a 4-part question here.
Okay, for me, I think looking back at it, obviously, I can't say before I really got involved that much because I don't know how it was then. But for me personally, I think the 80s was really good because bike development, a lot was going on then with disc brakes. You know, I went from air cooled to water cooled. The sport was really strong as far as the financial side was concerned as well. So for me personally, I think the 80s, the fact also with Supercross in America really took off big time in the 80s, and the stars that they had too that were born, the European stars and the American guys. I think the talent was so strong in the 80s, and then the 90s then was where it started to creep in, where you had all the with Dorna and with the FIM, you know, Action Group starting to try to make the Grand Prix more like road racing, and it kind of drifted off a bit. Yeah. So for me, the 80s was definitely, I think, the strongest era. I can't say about the 70s because I wasn't in it really, but definitely the 80s out of everything that I've done. I enjoyed that most, and for me, I think that was very influential part of the motocross sort of a lifeline for many people. I think rider-wise and bike-wise as well.
And then he's put the rest of that. He's put, when did it go from being fun to a wide open job, and did it become a chore with more risk and less reward?
Definitely. It was fun, I think, for me. I mean, I first came to the UK in 86 full time. So 86, 87, 88, because it was still quite fresh and quite new. It started to become a bit of a chore for me when it got to sort of the early 90s. After I'd had quite a few injuries, especially from 95 onwards. And then I was racing because I had to earn a living. I had to get results. You know, I was on win bonuses, etc. And with those injuries, and you're not riding and you're not getting any results, you don't get any funds. Then it starts to become really hard. Having to try and train with injuries as well, knowing that you're going to the line, you know, not healthy, but still having to do it because you've got no other option. You know, what else do you do? Then it becomes really, really hard mentally, and did become a chore, definitely. So I think mid 90s, definitely become a chore then, yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you. I've got a question from Terry Ward, and he's put, how did Rob get into the film industry with the stunts business?
By kind of luck, really. When I was living back in sort of 89, 90, I was living in a little village called Hanslope near Milton Keynes. Okay. And at the time, Lee Morrison, who was, I think he was British 100cc champion at the time in the schoolboys. The SMA rider. Lee had just become a stuntman and was working with stunt coordinator Gary Powell, who does all the Bond films. And I think Lee's first film was something like Tomb Raider, but Lee lived in the same village as me. And 89, 90, he was still riding, and we used to practice a lot together, and we used to train, go mountain biking together. Yeah. And I lost contact with Lee. He retired in about 92 because he broke his neck, and he retired. He went into the film side of it, and then about 10 years later, I bumped into him. So I hadn't seen him for about 10 years, and he was with Gary Powell, and they were at Pineham, the motocross track in Milton Keynes that used to be there next to the M1. Okay. And Lee came over and started chatting. You know, we had a good catch up and introduced me to Gary. And Gary just made a bit of an off-the-cuff comment, you should come along and do some film work one day. I went, yeah, it'd be great, So I gave him my number, and I really thought we were just sort of like going through the motions, just making a bit of chit chat.
Yeah.
And about 2 days later, he rang me up and said, we're filming Casino Royale, which is, Daniel Craig's first Bond film. He said, what you like in a car? I said, I'm pretty handy in a car, always mucking around in South African cars. He said, well, come down, we'll have a tryout. So I went down there, went to Dunsfold, down near Guildford, where the Top Gear track is, had a little bit of a tryout, and that was that. And then all of a sudden, I was an American copper in Casino Royale, driving a police car.
Yeah.
But that was the start, really. So it was just meeting the right person, the right
Just
people at the right time. Exactly.
That's
amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. I've got some follow-on questions about that from one of my pals, Vaughan Williams. He was a BSMA champion as well. Yep. He's got some questions as well for you. That's basically followed that on. He's put, you're obviously currently involved in the film industry. Can you please elaborate on what your current role is and what is a day in the life of often consists of for you?
My current role, because I'm not a stunt man. I do a lot of stunt-related work, but I'm not a stunt man. I'm technically a precision driver or rider mainly. My main thing is what I'm best sort of known for really is camera bike work. Is putting a camera on a bike and following and doing the similar kind of things the stunt boys are doing, but I've got cameras on. So sometimes I'm doing point of view stuff. Sometimes I'm chasing, whether it be Lee Morrison on a bike or Robbie Madison or Paul Edmondson. I'm chasing them, but I've got the cameras on. So my stuff generally is behind the scenes, although I have done some stuff where I'm in front of camera. Most of my stuff's behind the scenes. My normal day depends on what I'm doing, because I can be in a workshop in the UK building vehicles, converting either bikes or quads or cars to camera vehicles, which then I use, or my day could be on set, and I could be anywhere in the world. I've been in South America, South Korea, China, all over the place. So, generally it means an early start for me. Some mornings I can be up at 2:30, and I don't get back till like 10 at night. Most mornings I'm up at just before 5, leave at 5:30 to the workshop. I'm back home about 6:30. But I would say 75% of my time spent out. 50% is probably spent out of the country. 75% of that is probably spent on a film set somewhere. And every day is different. Every single day is different, because I might be on a quad one day, a bike the next, in a Porsche, the following day, or every day is different for me. So
do you love the? Do you enjoy that? The whole it's different, and
I do, because I couldn't do a 9-to-5 job, So for me, I thoroughly enjoy the fact that every day is different, because it's a new challenge, and it's not just the fact that I have different vehicles out every day, possibly, or on a different film. They may be rigged differently, and quite often I have to do the rigging, so I have to help mount the camera. I have to find a way of, because every job is different. They always say, okay, we want to put the camera on the back, we want it to be 18 inches off the floor, and that's really, really hard to rig that. So I have to come up with ways to be able to get that for them, and make it so that it's quickly changeable, so that I can adjust it quickly if they suddenly change their mind, which they do all the time. So a lot of what I do is like building Meccano stuff. I enjoy that side of it, having to think about how I can do things and make things adaptable. So I thoroughly enjoy what I'm doing. Yeah.
Very interesting. He's also put, can you tell us some of the films that you've worked on during your career and that to date? Sure, there's a big list already, isn't there?
Yeah, first film I worked on was Casino Royale, which is so I've done all of Daniel Craig's Bond films. Done 5 Bond films. Wow. Jason Bourne, Bourne Ultimatum. The last 2 Harry Potter films, I was actually Hagrid, doubled as Hagrid in the last one when he was in the sidecar. What else? There's so many. I've probably done over 50 films. The list is kind of endless. Mission Impossible, the last 2 Mission Impossible films. I was due to start Batman and also Jurassic Park this year before the lockdowns. Just after the lockdown started, I was due to start them. So that obviously is out the window. I did the last bit on the last Jurassic Park as well. Artemis Fowl, which is one of the new films which they're promoting at the moment. Worked on Artemis Fowl. Yeah, loads, absolutely loads.
It's amazing.
So, yeah, it's actually hard to remember. There's been that many of them. It's a bit of a mind boggle when I think back to how many, and thinking of the names, But yeah, lots of films.
Was you a bit of a Bond follower? So was that like really cool for you to get involved in that?
I've always kind of watched the Bond films when they've been on, but to be truthful, I wasn't an avid fan of. I'm not actually a big TV or film buff anyway. Okay. So a lot of people say, "Oh, who you're working with?" And I go, to be truthful, I'm not really sure. Obviously, I know Daniel Craig, I know Tom Cruise, people like that, but a lot of the other actors, I've no idea. And I'm not in awe with a lot of them really, because I'm not a massive film buff.
Yeah.
And they say, "Oh, isn't it great on a film set with so and so?" And I go,
work.
It's work, So I don't really take too much.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And it kind of spoils, and it does spoil when you look at the films. Working in the film side of it spoils films, because you know how they've done things, and you know how they cheat things. So now it's completely changed the way I look at films. I dissect films to figure out, okay, how did they do that? How did they do that? It spoils it.
So you're like dissecting it, like type of thing,
Yeah.
He's also put, how difficult is it to handle the bikes with all these gizmos and cages on and cameras compared to a normal motocross bike?
It's quite difficult. I mean, the lightest, bear in mind, I'm quite a big lad anyway, so I'm 100 kilos, and normal motocross bikes, say a 105 or something, plus all the rigging, cameras. I'm probably, the minimum I'm carrying normally is about a quarter of a ton, and I can be 350 kilos sometimes. It's like, and also the fact that you get a lot of stuff where the camera's on the front and it's there. The camera's here, so you're having to look. It's like riding with fully covered tear-offs and looking out of a little keyhole like that, and you're having to try and find your way through crowds or through traffic, with this bit of a handful. And not all the time it's fast stuff. Sometimes it can be like I'm doing 10 mile an hour, and the guys who are remotely operating the camera are starting to pan the camera left and right, and you're doing 5 mile an hour, 10 mile an hour, and the bike's really unstable when it's slow anyway. And you're having to fight it to keep it stable. Sometimes I come in and I get off the bike, and my arms hurt, my legs hurt from holding the weight, but I don't say anything, because nobody needs to know that. At the end of the day, as long as they get their shot and it's good, they'll go, "Yeah, it was brilliant, that was great. How did you do that?" Yeah, it was hard work. It is hard work. You can imagine taking a 500 motocross bike into the muddiest track and getting absolutely covered in shit. Getting covered, and then riding it for, it's hard work, But I think having done that and having ridden in the worst conditions, that is sort of, benefit to me, because bullying the bike around and, having to try and ride with obscured vision, it's all helped.
They definitely got the right man for the job now.
Yeah. I think, a lot of road races and people like that, road bike riders would get on it. They would struggle just for the visibility side of it. But if you're a motocross rider and you're used to pulling tear-offs and roll-offs and having hardly any vision, you kind of adapt to it much easier, I think, being an off-road rider.
Really good. He's put, if there was a film to be made of your life and career in motocross, which actor would you like to play you, and why?
Well, I don't know many actors that can ride a motocross bike to start with.
That's true. That's very true.
No, to be truthful, if I was going to choose someone to play my life, it would be on just the fact of which actors I like and which actors I have a lot of time for, and it would be either Tom Hanks or Matt Damon. So whichever one, probably Matt Damon, because he can speak with more of a South African accent after the rugby film.
That was good.
Matt Damon or Tom Hanks, someone like that, because they're great actors. But don't know many that can ride a motocross bike then.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I think they definitely need a stunt double for that.
Yeah.
Right, I've got a question here from Adam Fry. He's put, can you ask Rob about his memories from Western Beach Race and his best results?
I only ever rode Western, I think, 3 times.
Okay.
Led it 86 my first year, and I think I seized up going up the start straight on for the second time. I was at a 500 carry, my first year in the UK, and I must have had about a 2-minute lead. I was so far in front, and the bike nipped up, so I never finished that. Second year I did it in 87, I think it was, on a 490M, and the gearbox went after about 2 hours when I was leading, so I never finished it. And I did it one more time. I think it was 91 or 92 on a 500 Honda, and I think I finished about 8. But I got to the first sand dune 4th, and thought, I'll be clever. I'll follow the guy in 3rd place at the sand dune. And he got halfway up and stopped, and I ran into the back of him and got myself buried. And by the time I got over by the time I got over the second sand dune, Ryan Hunt, who was leading, had already lapped me.
No,
so
really?
I'm like, oh, it was because I just got stuck in. I was in the middle of the track. Everybody surrounded me. You can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I just rode, and I think I finished 8th. So I mean, fond memories though. But it was when the sidecars and the quads and the bikes were all together, and it was absolute chaos.
Madness.
Good fun though. Good fun. But you just don't want to collide with a quad or a sidecar. I think I did a couple of times. Ended up on the floor, but great fun though. Great fun.
Didn't have a lot of luck there then. Didn't have a lot of luck.
No, I never had a lot of luck, but thoroughly enjoyed it. Definitely thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah.
Good experience. Right, I've got a question from Adrian Shepherd. He's put, I remember an interview he did, and he was asked when he would move up to the 500 class, and he said he feels he will when he's 100% on a 250, he will move to the 500. My question is, does he wish he went to the 500 GPs a few seasons earlier when he didn't have quite the raw speed of his early 90s, but probably quick enough to win the races in the 500?
I think looking back at it now, I was always a better 500 rider than I was a smaller bike rider. I think personally I should have gone to the 500cc first. I had an offer on the table from Alec Wright for a factory ride for Kawasaki in the 500s in 87, but my dad thought at the time that I should do a couple of years in the 250 class. Being 17 years old at the time, you listen to your dad's opinion. I didn't really say too much, but looking back at it now, I think I should have gone to the 500s in 87 and stayed there. And probably when the 500s then kind of bowed out a little bit, and the 250 became the main class, then possibly looked at dropping down to the 250 class. But yeah, I think I should have gone 500s early.
That's interesting. I've got another one here from Sean Graham. He put, did Rob race at Streatley Hills Circuit? I can't remember from memory. Did he like it? It was a great track. Used to go through some woods, and then when it came out, there was a bomb hole with a huge leap. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah,
I remember Streatley. I raced there. Only time I raced there was 1986, my first year over here. I think I'd gone to Gothenburg Supercross the night before, and then flown in that morning. I think me and Jeremy Watley went and raced in Gothenburg, and Alec Wright picked us up in the morning, ferried us to Streatley track, and it was actually my first round, because in 86 I rode the support class of the 500 British Championship, and I obviously won all the races, and then halfway through I went into the main adult class at the 500. So Streatley was my first official race in the open class, the 500cc, and that's the only time I rode there. And I always remember that really well, because in practice it was quite wet and there was a massive puddle, and I was cruising around in practice, and I was riding really wide of the puddle, and Thorpe was behind me. I didn't know he was behind me. He wheelied through the puddle next to me and covered me so much so I went off the track, through the ropes, down the hill, and crashed. And because I couldn't see where I was going, I was completely soaked. And my dad, when I came in, my dad went and found David. I think gave him a bit of a mouthful, but Dave's a wily old character. It was just a bit of fun, really. I thought, I was pissed off about it, but it was a good story, though. Cracking track though, really good track. Yeah, really good. I mean, all in amongst sort of there were houses just nearby, really like expensive houses as well. Then this motocross track set back up on this little bit of a hill with a little bit of a wood round the top of it. Yeah, cracking track, but really, really hard pack, quite stony, like chalky ground and hard pack. But yeah, good track, really good.
I didn't know about that. That was interesting. Right, the next one I've got is from a Ryan Taylor. You have experience both riding in the Motocross the Nations and managing the team. What did you take from both the experiences, and what in general is expected of the role of the manager at these events?
Riding the Motocross Nations for me, great sort of honour to ride for your country. I mean, when I first came over here, people were saying, "Oh, you're South African. How can you ride for it?" But I'm actually English, got an English passport. I was born over here. But yeah, great honour riding for the team. I always seem to go up that level at the Motocross Nations. I won in France in '88. I won the moto in Vimmerby in Sweden in 1990. And then obviously we won in '94. I think I've been on the team where we finished second, third, and first, overall. So I've had some pretty good memories of Motocross Nations. Managing it's completely different. When I was manager, I did 7 years from 2000 to 2007, and the first sort of 3-4 years really is my job to choose the riders, sort of try and get the mechanics and everything organised. The ACU were doing kind of most of the stuff behind the scenes. On the day then, I was the one that had to try and keep track of what was going on, talk to the riders, try and get them motivated, try and work out some kind of plan as to how we were going to run things, who was going to go where on the start line, etc., etc.
Yeah.
The way things kind of went, a couple of years down the line, 2005, 2006, 2007, the ACU started to take more and more away from me as a manager, and basically all I was there to do was to take shit on the day when things didn't go right. I wasn't making decisions anymore. I wasn't getting paid for it. It's a voluntary job. I didn't get paid for it, and I was thinking, well, what am I doing it for? The ACU. Then I lost all. I wouldn't say I lost respect for the ACU, but I lost respect for what they expected me to do. And I was like, I don't need this. I'd rather let somebody else do it that wants to spend the time, because I didn't want to spend the time doing it anymore. You're just taking the shit on the day. And I had phone calls. I got verbally abused by riders, in-laws 1 year, because I'd changed the team to what the ACU had originally said it was going to be. And I'm like, I don't need this. The trouble is with Motocross Nations quite often, especially when you haven't got 3 clear-cut riders, is everyone's got an opinion. Yeah. You can't please everybody. So some people are going to be pissed off. Some people are going to be, elated that they're on the team. You can't please everybody. And unfortunately, I'm not kind of one of those people that says, no, this is how it is. This is how it's going to be. And that's it, full stop. I take things to heart. Yeah. And I was like, it hurts when somebody says, oh, you should have had so-and-so, and I can't believe you're doing this, and effing and blinding down the phone. And I'm like, I don't need this. Yeah. I'd rather go somewhere where I'm appreciated. So I stepped aside.
Did you find it hard to decide picking riders when you had the choice? That is obviously in the start of it.
It's generally speaking, you have a gut feeling what you want to do, and then you get the teams. You start applying. Some team managers start applying pressure. Phoning me up saying, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. We're not going to make this available if you're going to do that. And so it starts to become a bit of an issue. It's not straightforward. If you just had the ability to say, right, okay, that rider on that rider on that rider on that, for me that works. Talk to the lads, but you have too much influence or too much interference from outside sources that have a biased interest in having their rider on the team or their rider doing something else. So it just became, it wasn't straightforward. If it was straightforward, it'd be great, but it's not. I don't know what it's like now. I kind of got away from it. So
sounds like a lot of hard work in the end.
It was, and it's voluntary. So
so
I don't need that for not being paid to do it. So yeah.
Okay. I've got a question here from Tom Bow. He's put, if you could pick a dream Motocross the Nations team for GB from any era, who would you pick to ride in each category and why?
That's a difficult one, because I'd have to say, to start with, me, Kurt and Mailer, because we won it in '94. So, but when you look at it in another way, you had people like, Graham Noyce in his era, world champion, Dave Thorpe in his area, world champion, Dobby, world champion. You'd have to say, 3 world champions. You're not going to get better than that.
Yeah.
Although we won it, and none of us were world champions in '94. So, but on paper, you'd have to say that you take someone like Noisy, you'd take Thorpe on their day, and you'd someone like Jamie on his day, because he was world champion. So, you'd have to look at it that way. That's the way I would look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think there's we at times have had some pretty strong riders at times, but on paper, you'd never leave a world champion out of a team, would you, if they were healthy?
No, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I actually spoke to Jamie, and someone asked him exactly the same question, and he actually said the 94 team.
Yeah, I think because we won it,
Yeah, that's what he said.
And none of us were world champions that year, but we won it. So it's a tricky one because there's a lot of riders on their day. If they rode, look at Max Anstey at Matterley Base. On his day, if he rode like that on his day, you'd put Max in, no worries. And Tommy Searle on his day, going back a few years, if he rode to his full ability, you would say you put Tommy in. But so it's a real tricky one, But judge, British riders, we do tend to be a little bit hit and miss, especially at the Grand Prix level. Nobody's really been up there consistently on a regular basis, apart from last time Jamie was world champion on 125, and when DT and obviously Noisy when they were world champions. So yeah.
Okay, we're just going to call that for the end of part 1, and then we'll be back for part 2 in a second. I'll just stop that recording, Rob.
Okay.